Hey, what's up, multimedia? It's Mr. Campbell, San Benito High School. Just want to check in with you today and show you how to make some cool text effects using sort of Chrome. So notice it looks kind of shiny and reflective, and there's different little pieces of color and reflection. There's also these gleaming points happening off the top, which kind of sells sort of a 3D effect out of it. So there's only a few layers going on here. One of them is, of course, this text layer here, and there's another text layer here. So there's actually two of these that do different things. So each of those has a different purpose. So let's get started. There's also a few layers of these. You can see which ones they are. These reflections, we're going to show you how to do all these things. Let's start off by choosing a new document. And when you're in the new document dialog, we haven't really done this yet, choose print, choose letter, set it to landscape right here, so it'll be 11 by 8.5, and set the background to black right there. So choose create. Now you've got a black background document. Next thing we're going to do is going to get the text tool. So the text tool, you may find that your toolbar is set up like this. I recommend that you click that little arrow to set it to dual width. It's just for me, I can't always get all my tools visible this way. So if I click it this way, I can see all my tools easier. So let's get the text tool, the type tool. And there's other tools underneath here for other kinds of text. We want to use the horizontal type tool. And we can click and drag to make a text area. And then we're going to write the word Baylor's because we are Baylor strong, like this. Now, if you wind up not seeing all your letters and it runs out of space, it's just because you may need to expand the size of this. Now, to make this effect most visible, I'm using the Arial font, and I'm using Arial Black. And the reason I'm using that one is because it's nice and bold and wide, and it'll sell the effect better. If you use something like basic Arial, or you're using, let's just for fun show some ones that don't work. Let me Control A to select everything. So if I change this to a basic Arial or something else, those choices of fonts will not sell it quite as well because in some cases they're really thin. So we're going to stick with Arial Black on this one, and we're going to start adding some effects to this. So first thing I want to do is you can right click on this and choose blending options. You can also choose the FX menu right here. So if I've got that open, I can choose blending options, and they're all listed in here. There's a bunch of them. So if I set that up, I can see contour like this. So once we've got this dialog open for blending modes or layer effects, we've got the bevel and emboss. We want to set bevel and emboss to our first one. You want to set this to inner bevel, and as you can see over here, it winds up sort of putting an edge up on the letters. And you can adjust this to go big, or however much bevel you want on the edge. It's kind of useful if you have a flat area or an apparently flat area on the thing. You want to take softening down all the way. Like if you have softening up, it kind of makes it sort of bubblicious, and we want these to be nice chrome letters like you might find on a car, on the name of the car. So let's see, we can set the gloss contour. And there's a few options in here you can mess with, but you want to keep the size, that's the depth of it actually. So when that makes it taller, it angles, these all relate to the angle. So the depth, if you bring that down, but bring the size up, then you have a little more room to work with. So pick something that works pretty good. I usually go with full depth all the way up, and we can crank this around to get the right look that we're going for. Now the angle of the shading is kind of important, so which way the light comes from is what that affects. And also the gloss contour here, we want to choose this one. Usually works pretty well. There's a few different ones. Try them all out and see which ones you like best. They all cause sort of different amounts of craziness. Usually the ones in the top row are sort of the best, like this one or this one or this one. Try to get ones that show a lot of contouring. So you want to see a lot of light reflecting on there, and they're trying to pick up lights and shadows from the environment that it's in. So usually these curved ones work pretty well. So once you've got that going on, then you're going to add more from the same menus. There's all these other choices. So now we're going to go down to outer glow, and if we click on this and click on this at the same time, it takes us to the settings, and you can set the blend mode to darken or multiply. The blend modes affect how this interacts with what's behind it. So you can work with the spread on this or the size. And this one actually doesn't do a whole lot unless you have this set to normal. So we kind of don't have too much on there. So you got that. And you can also use an inner glow. Eventually we'll get there. And we can also come up with the contour and set the contour properly. So once you check the contour for this, you can then, of course, choose different contours, and you can also reset them or adjust them as you see fit to get what you're after. So that's usually works pretty good. And again, if you want to adjust it yourself and try out different curves, you can actually get in here and change the curves yourself and add points and make your own curves, which is fun but not all the way necessary. It's kind of a advanced trick, and you're welcome to try it out. I implore you to give it a try. Worst thing can happen is you mess it up and you try something else. No big deal. No harm, no foul. All right, so let me triple check that I've got everything. I think we're also going to try an inner glow eventually, but not yet. So now I've got, this looks okay. This looks all right. So what we're going to do now is we're going to duplicate this. Now, when you click on these layers, when you right-click on this, where you click on the layer gives you different results. It's almost irritating. So if I click over here, I've got blending options, which is where we just were. I've got other choices, selecting the pixels, thumbnails, etc. So if I just change to small thumbnails, that's a quick and easy way to change that. I like large thumbnails. And when we go to the right side of the layer in their layers panel, we can right click on choose this and choose duplicate layer. So I got duplicate layer here, and this other copy, let's turn off the bottom copy, and this copy right here, we're going to change it to rasterize. So right now it's editable text. When you rasterize it, it turns into a bunch of pixels. So raster images are pixel images. It's just another word. So I've right-clicked on that and chose rasterized layer, and now it doesn't even know it's text. The computer says, I don't know, it's a bunch of pixels. So we're going to actually make two of those. So I can right-click on this again and choose duplicate layer. And on the top copy, we're going to do some other work with it. And let's just add some other stuff. So if I right-click on this and choose blending options, this is where we're going to add our inner glow. Okay, and here's our settings for the inner glow. We can set this to normal, and you can choose your contouring for that, like this, and it does very subtle things to it. So obviously there's a lot of choices you can use. If you open up the blending modes here, blending options, there's a lot to mess with and try and experiment with. I wouldn't recommend the stroke because, well, it's not too horrible, I guess. So if you build the stroke just adds sort of a line. You have to click on this to change the settings. So if I build the stroke more, you can't even see it. It's on the outside, so I'm not going to use that one. Inner shadow kind of creates some interesting effects. So if I choose this, again, I can change the blending modes. The blend modes, of course, as I've said before, affect how this one interacts with stuff behind it. So as we change out the color, let's try with blue. This just gives us different results, and it's pretty subtle. Okay, pretty subtle. And this is just, if we turn this off or on, you're going to see the differences, and it just gives us more of a glow. And think of what the term is. Satin, you could try, I guess. I haven't really messed around with that too much myself, but you can change the blend mode to something else. Normal, multiply is pretty common. Change the distance, the size. This just has to do with the distance of the light, I think. The opacity, and just turn it off and on. That gives us a little bit more work. So you can try all these out. There's no shame, no harm, no foul in trying these things out and see what happens. Try gradient overlay. This will change a little bit of something to build it. And as a result, we wind up having something that looks like the letters on a car that tell us what the model is. Okay. Now, little chrome lettering. So the last thing we're going to add in here is if I collapse this, the effects to make it more visible, I'm going to add an empty layer. So my empty layer here is going to be used to make a sort of a gleam, as we saw in this previous example, these gleams on here. So to do this, we get the brush tool. Shortcut is B. You're going to use white on this, and the brush you want to use is about 127 pixels. The hardness should be all the way down, and it's pretty much the default brush. So if you just click on this, like that doesn't look like we're after all, does it? But if you then choose Edit and Free Transform, you can stretch this up and make it narrower and make it sort of sharp looking and hit enter to accept. Now that's part of the deal. So if we duplicate this one by dragging it onto the new layer button like this, we can now take the second copy and again use Edit, Free Transform. Shortcut is T. I use this like crazy. I use this all the time, free transform. So I use Control T more often than not. And so if I take this and hold down the Shift key, it wants to go to 90 and hit Enter to accept it. Now the last thing I'm going to do is add one more paint spot right there. I can actually want to first select these two layers, so my two copies that have my gleam in it. I'm going to right click and choose Merge Layers. So I go to Merge Layers and now they're one piece, and on that same layer I might zoom in just a bit and spacebar to move over, get that brush tool again, and I'm just going to guide myself right on there to try to get that spotted right in there. So now that looks okay. It's a little big though, so I'm going to right click on this layer and choose rename. How do I rename this layer? There's a way, I swear. So I can double click there. So I'm going to call this Gleam or Sparkle or whatever. So now I've got one gleam. I'm going to reduce the size again. I'm going to use Control T to do free transform, and then I'm going to move it over like this. You can rotate it. It's a good idea to keep it from merging its lines with other parts of the thing. And you can also, if you want to, you can add a blend mode onto this. So we can choose this and give that just a slightest bit of a shadow. Let's see, a drop shadow, and let's make that black. So there we go, and now it shows up just a bit better over the white areas of the thing. Last thing we'll do is we're going to take that piece and Alt Shift drag it over. The Alt copies it, and the Shift moves it in a straight line. So now I have more copies in the layers, and you may wish to merge those layers or not. Let's just do this, and you can put them wherever you want to, but it should sort of make sense. Like put them someplace that they should be, these gleams, like maybe here-ish, perhaps, maybe on the corner there. But you don't want to go too crazy because it just oversells the effect. So after a while, you're like, okay, that's enough. It's enough. So this looks okay. I probably have one too many. And you can actually take all these and select all those layers. If I click the first one, and then I click this last one with Shift, I've got them all selected, and I can merge layers. So that cleans up my workspace a bit. And of course, when you're done with this, you're going to want to turn this in. So make sure that you save as, so it's always editable as a Photoshop document. So I'm going to call this Chrome Text. And to turn it in, of course, you're going to want to use File, Export, Quick Export as PNG. Load these both into your Google Docs and turn them in both on the portfolio page in Bulb and on the assignment in Classroom. There you have it. Hope you had fun with this. I'll check in a bit.